My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
You can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for
It
them.
is worth it.
Just focus on the next
Doesn't
step.
matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing
That
something.
is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing
It's a
anything else.
challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to
Oh,
Saturday.
I've worked on that house.
I
I've
racked
worked
up
on that
every
house.
single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think there's
could.
a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah, I
kids
just
these
love
days, right?
working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about,
hindsight, that
I've
was...
also been a very indecisive
That you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
It
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the guest speaker.
I'm going to start with a bit of an intro to you for people who don't know you. So bear with me. Obviously, I won't be able to do this with everyone, but you can. So my two good things, book drive last year, thousands of books for kids in need. So people sitting there, we're going to talk a lot about Auckland and this weird degree you're doing. But obviously there's this wonderful side. You were Ducks last year from your high school. So obviously clever, put that in context. On the other side, I think I feared for your life in Samoa, but I wasn't sure if 50 SPF was actually going to cut it. So that's my one thing, and quite possibly the worst handwriting in terms of reading I've ever come across. I think I begged you to type in the end, but yeah, that would be fair. Now look, your guys' context being a first year, I think there's kids sitting there now, as you know, they've started applying. They've applied for Auckland, they've applied for Canterbury. If they're thinking tertiary or even Polytech, they're applying now. So your one's really relevant because you were literally last year doing that. So although you're not in a career yet, that movement in and that arrival was really interesting to us. Yeah. So before we get to that, can you explain to people your schooling in a nutshell, particularly secondary, how you found it, the sort of subjects you were into, got to before we get to this thing you were doing? Yeah?
Yeah.
So how was it?
Oh, I'd say it was somewhere in the middle. Look, when I left, I didn't think there was anything more I could actually get out of it. Like, I did everything I could. But, like, it came with a bit too much sacrifice. I put a bit too much on the little things. So when it came to the end, like, yes, I'd had everything I could out of it, but I didn't feel as if I'd had a fully holistic approach to it. So, like, obviously I did a bit of everything, but leaving it just felt like I'd just pinned everything on academics, which it really didn't need to be. Obviously I had a lot of support, but I think when you're up in that upper decile, they tend to give you the more support because they want you to succeed as well. So I think obviously our experiences, especially me and Madeline's, are going to be a lot different. We were always given more opportunities. We were always pushed for leadership, which obviously makes a difference in your confidence to go to tertiary studies. Because it is a confidence thing. I fully promote that, because going in and having the ability to study and learn for yourself and choose, it's hard. And so I think that was what it was for me, was tertiary gave me the ability to choose and to have the confidence to actually that was the most important thing for me in the end, was that I had the confidence to actually go and do what I wanted to do. And that was the thing that I learned more than any of my academics.
So in hindsight, are you thinking you would have maybe thrown caution into the wind and done more drama and more music, or, what do you mean by the bits you missed? So kids sitting there now, what is that?
I think drama was actually the big one for me, because I went back and did, randomly, I went back and did some shows in my last year, because my year 12 was abysmal in terms of just my health and stuff. And I went back and I absolutely loved it, and I just regretted not doing the things that I'd had a passion for so long. I did a lot of drama through growing up in middle school. When I got to high school, it was you don't have time for that. You have to focus on academics. And I regretted it so much. So going back in year 13 to that was a big realization of no matter the passion, there's space for it in your life. You don't have to just give it up to be, meeting the quota of what people believe you should do as an academic.
When you said, when you said that, Rachel, about you felt from middle school to high school, it was oh, you need to give it up. When you say you, was that coming from internal or external feeling of that needs to be pushed aside?
I'd say there was no one out external who obviously said that. It's just that pressure you feel. And I think it also came with like when you start being in the running for stuff like ducks, people felt that you had to keep succeeding at that level. So I felt that I had to, I couldn't let people down. I had to stay up at the top and always be, at the highest academic level. And in the end, I only got ducks and I was only getting top a year when I was doing drama and when I was doing more sport, so it was just so ironic that I'd felt all this pressure to like just be studying and, like be focusing on that completely. And the second I like put more passion back in my life, it was like, I just felt like me again. So yeah.
Can I touch on one thing that's probably coming out to people listening? There's a level of intensity you do everything at. Would that be fair? There's a personality, and this might come out later in the thing you're doing. There is a level that you operate. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of go big or go home with me. Like, it's just always how I've been. I don't believe in half-assing anything. So people can take me quite strangely when they meet me because I sound like I am a bit intense, but yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so just before we get to where you go, because this will be relevant, subjects. What were you either good at or just and in terms of the things you did well at, so that people can get a picture of if they like you, where were your subjects at?
I took everything, so I'm not a really good example.
No,
I
good.
took, I think, in the N9 level 3s. I took 5 in year 12 and then I took 3 in year 13. So I took, see if I can remember, I took calculus, statistics, biology, physics, chemistry, health, geography, English, and then I took diving technically as well. Don't know how, but you get level 3 credits, so I'm not complaining. But yeah, diving ended up being probably the pinnacle reason as to why I'm here today, which is quite interesting because when I did diving in year 10, you get level 3 credits, and it meant I passed level 1 in year 10, which previously hadn't happened because of the amount of subjects you can take. And so it meant I could go to the school and be like, give me an extra subject. And it wasn't quite like that conversation, but essentially it meant that I could take so many level 3s in year 12. And I was going to leave high school in year 12 and just go to uni. But that's its own story. But yeah, but interestingly, I was always very good at health, geography, chemistry, biology, or more the health sciencey stuff. And then I ended up doing engineering, and I was never really good at physics or math in the end. So that's quite interesting.
So tell me, you're sitting at school 12, 13 are your sort of pivotal years, because 12 you're almost been a 13 in a sense. You've been advanced a little bit. Some people sitting there wouldn't maybe get that in their school. They're just literally 1, 2, 3, but that's fine. Just a year early. 1, 2, I think you were quite young.
No, I was just normal. Yeah.
There was a few like that. But anyway, what were your thinkings in 12, 13 about degrees and moving out of school? Where was your head at? What were your options? Or was there only one? And where did you go to find that information? Because we're interested in where people access pathways out of school. Careers advisors, off your own back. Yeah, that, please.
I think for me it was quite different between the 2 years. I'd set myself up to leave high school at the end of year 12 and to study engineering. So I'd always intended to do engineering. And I went to a weekend thing at UC. So it's like a week-long residential program. That was kind of like my pivotal point for engineering. I was really good at maths and physics at that point, and then after that I got really bad. So like I just like that was one of also my pivotal moments. Like
Just quickly touch on that thing you did, because some kids might want to. So what was that?
Yeah. So WeCan is Women in Engineering at Canterbury. So it's a fully paid for residential thing. So I just had to pay for my flights down to Christchurch, and we stayed in a hall of residence. And it was actually like our first opportunity to like see tertiary engineering, because I think that's also the big difference is when you come into first year engineering, it's all theory. Like we don't do any practical stuff. And that was like, if I hadn't had the chance to see what the practical aspects look like, I probably wouldn't have gone down engineering purely because of also like I was struggling more with maths and physics. But I think seeing like firsthand like the work you wanted to do and how it actually applied, I think that made quite a difference for me.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, so now continuing on about, so engineering was number one. There was nothing else? Yeah.
I mean, I think this came from more the external pressure, but when you academically succeed, there's always the push to go medical. And so, like, I kept going down it, like, for right up until the bitter end on decisions. Like, as I was applying for Auckland, I had both still going.
Okay.
And I never felt like the push to do medicine, but it was more like you're academic. This is where you should be going. And that's not saying anything about engineering. Like, it's got its own hardness, but there was still that, pressure to go medical.
Okay.
When I used to talk to you, it was weird because you talked about Formula One racing cars.
Yeah.
Which was like out of the box. It's that kid who goes, now I'm going to be an astronaut. And you go, yeah, of course you are. No, you're not. I don't know where that came from. And I didn't honestly believe, I sort of tried to quiz you around. So do you have a car? Do you tinker with things? And you're like, no, but I'm going to do it. Where does this weirdness come from for something that seemed, for a young lady, not being sexist?
No, fair enough.
Explain. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Oh.
It just happened. Like, it kind of all came around at the start of year 13. Like, I hated year 12 because I only did academics, and I got really sick from various things because I was only doing academics. And it made such a difference in me actually going, like, what do I want to do? Like, stop trying to just pigeonhole and go, this is what everyone's telling you should do, so this is what you have to do. And so obviously you say I do a lot of things with intensity. I was like, right, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it as big and as dramatic as possible. Basically, that was it. But I'm not sure, honestly. Like, I started watching motorsport to try and, like, hang out with my dad more, and it was really boring. I'm not going to lie, at first. Hated it. I was like, what is this? Why are we watching cars do the same lap 60 times? And then it was just a click. And then from then it was like, I want to do that.
And what's that? Explain to people. What's that?
That is theoretically motorsports engineering, or the motorsports realm in technology. We'll see. It's very diverse and depends which way you go. It doesn't have to be F1. That's just where you go when you're me and you want to be big and intense. But there's quite a lot of opportunities within New Zealand I don't think people realise, but growing up in Cambridge, there wasn't that opportunity to go out and see if it was what I wanted, which was difficult because it was more like, I knew I wanted to do engineering from the start. It was more just like, what type? And I knew I wanted to go mechanical. It was just actually like, that's what I struggled with living in Cambridge, was there was nothing in that realm, especially for a young female, that they were going to offer you. And that's not to like point any fingers or call anyone sexist. It's just when you live in quite a old, almost farmer town, to see a young female go, I want to go to high level motorsport, there's not going to be many people going, oh yeah, she can do that. Because you just don't see it.
Yeah. Okay, so you didn't apply anywhere else, really? You threw your eggs at Auckland. And then scholarships, how did that transition to being accepted go for you?
I was a bit of a mess with applying. I applied to everywhere for everything. So I had, I think, 9 unis I'd applied for across NZ and Oz. My goal was always Oz. Like, from year 10, I'd pinned myself to be going to Oz, and I applied for some scholarships over there, and I went over for an interview during my exams last year for a scholarship. And it all went well, and so I'd pinned myself on going to UNSW for engineering, and I'd had basically a conditional offer, and I got the ATAR I needed, and then they pulled the offer within like 2 or 3 days of it. And this was like 2 weeks before uni started in New Zealand. And so I was just like, what? In that week, I had absolutely no idea. So no. I literally just sat there. I was like, I don't know what to do. So, like, I actually came to Auckland for the open day a couple of years ago, and I swore, I was like to my parents, I was like, I'm never coming here. I hate it. Like, the campus is like, I hate it. I don't see any opportunities here. And I got to like the 2 weeks before Auckland move-in day, and Mum was like, you have to make a decision. Like, you're either going or you're not going. You just need to decide what you're doing. And I was like,
you had an offer on the table from them?
Yeah. So I had a non-conditional Yeah, non-conditional, just because I had my level threes already done. I had my rank score, which was lucky. I knew everywhere I had non-conditional, so it was easy to know what my options were. But I had deposits down at 3 unis for halls right up until that 2-week date because, and I think for me, and this is the biggest advice I always give, is like actually know your goals. Like, what do you want out of uni? When you pick not I think for me, money started overshadowing what I wanted because Auckland had more options motorsport wise, and so did UC, but UC had given me no money, and Auckland had given me some, but Waikato and Otago had given me quite a lot. And so I was like, I shouldn't be giving up this money. And that started kind of overshadowing what I wanted out of uni. And
Yeah.
I think Madeline's also probably going to talk about this because she went to UC, and like knowing your mind is so, so important for choosing. And I didn't for so long because I hadn't actually, if you just sit down and you're like, this is what I want out of uni, you're going to get more out of it. And I was quite lucky because I didn't want to go to Auckland when I moved in. I moved in just to like, because I was so stressed out. I was just like, I can't think anymore. Like, I'm just going to Auckland. Like, I didn't think I'd make it past the first 4 weeks. I genuinely was convinced that I was going to drop out. And so obviously then I went and did my FS thing, and that's what kept me at uni. So
What's the FS? Like, talk more about that, please.
yeah, so FS is, or FSC 47 is basically, it's called Formula Student. It's essentially Formula One, but for university students. They run it all across the world. I went and applied. The application process is it's quite intense. It's like 3 or 4 stages to get in, and it's like a 15% acceptance rate, so it's real hard.
Like, explain it, because there'll be a kid here wanting to do this. Give us some examples of those steps.
So we had to, obviously, we did an original application, and then they read that, and then we had to do an interview, and then we had to do a newbie project. So we actually had to build something, which I actually dropped out during my newbie project because I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'd walked in and there was like 40 guys. I was the only female, and I kid you not, it's quite funny actually, but I went in and I started and I was like, nah, like I can't do this. Like, I don't have the skills. Like, I shouldn't be here. And it was massive imposter syndrome, especially coming from like uni where all your classes are male, and then you go into this and it's like all male. You're like, nah, there's no females here. Like, I can't succeed here. Like, I need to, that's what it felt like in the moment. And no one said that. It was just, that's how you feel when you're in those environments. Yeah. And you're young, like I didn't have any backing in that like industry whatsoever because I didn't, well, maybe it's not me not seeking it out, but it is hard to get your foot in the door in those sorts of industries, especially in New Zealand, because there isn't anything, especially for young people. But so you have to do that. And then I pulled out, and then my manager of my like subgroup, he actually convinced me to come back and give it a go. And then I cut my hand open in the workshop in front of everyone. And I was just like, are you kidding? It was just like one of those moments where you're like, oh, I literally had like all of the senior management of the team walk past and just go, what is she doing? And I'm standing there like blood trickling. I'm like, hey, can I have a plaster? So that was quite funny. But so then we do that, and then we have to do another interview about our project and what we've made. And then if you get through that, we had to do a junior project, which is like a research design project. So I finished that now, so I'm like fully a member of the team. But I literally, in my first week on the team, I cut myself 5 times, and I could just see them go, what did we do? Like, the workshop foreman was like, to me, he's like, I'm going to be on the news. Like, someone's died in the workshop and it's going to look really bad for me. I was like, I'm sorry. It's quite funny, but like now I do get called Edward Scissorhands because I cut myself so much in the first week. It's getting
for people listening, we're going to put up some of those photos or different ones, or a video you're making us of this workshop. What's some of the stuff you're doing there? Because I mean, it doesn't look like uni to me. It looks brilliant.
Yeah, and it's weird because that's what's keeping me at uni. Uni's kind of become a bit of a side thing now.
Yep.
You just kind of end up throwing yourself into the team. And so we have like 5 or 6 different subgroups. So there's like a business side, who do design, like marketing, sponsorship, because the car costs a lot to make, like more than you think. Like by the time you've added in machining costs and the materials, but we have a lot of sponsors, to be fair. So I work in composites, which is like everything carbon fiber on the car. So we make the chassis, we make all the wings. So at the moment we've just finished building the rear wing for the car. Make the under tray. We make a bunch of other things. We're making some things I can't tell you about because I'd get kicked off the team. But they're like really cool stuff. And then we have mechanical. They do steering, suspension, and then you got autonomous. So they're trying to build a self-driving car. It's been quite a new thing. If there's actually some teams have done it successfully. So ours is quite new. So they're still like working on it. And then feel like there's a couple more. Yeah, electrical. Obviously we're an electric car, which is pretty cool. So it's very interesting how that all ties in, because obviously we have to make the chassis safe to run with that much current flowing through the car. So it's all to do with what core we use in the chassis and stuff. It's really interesting.
So you're learning materials, shape, design, strength, aerodynamic. Is this all, yeah?
Yeah, and it's like, especially for composites, you don't learn it in uni, like not until fourth year. Even if you do chem mat, which is like chemical materials engineering, you don't like the ability to touch carbon fiber and like work with it as like a first year. And the carbon fiber working with is like pre-prig, so it's like 8, 9, 10 grand a roll. Like it's not cheap stuff. And the ability like to just use that and like make mistakes, because we are sponsored and we don't go out of our way to make mistakes, but the ability to like make mistakes and learn and like that environment is, you just can't get it anywhere else.
Because they're sponsoring, like they know they're sponsoring a student like that team. So that's naturally going to be a part of it. I'm just so fascinated because like you've gone onto the comp part of it. Like, do you have the opportunity in preceding years to then maybe do like electrical or do this? Like, how did you end up in that specific subgroup?
So you apply based on subgroup, and your new project and junior project is based off of your subgroup. It was always just aerodynamics for me when I looked at what I wanted to do. Wise was aero design, which means you go through composites. So generally people don't swap subgroups unless you're very unhappy. It's kind of frowned upon to, just because like, for example, mechanical, I think they had like nearly 100 applicants and 5 people got in. Like, so people, they don't like it when people come into another one and try and jump, if that makes sense. I'm sure you have like very valid reasoning for your degree changes. Yeah. They don't want to be taken advantage of.
So each year do you have to apply again?
Not to the same extent, like we have to fill in a form, but it's not, you don't have to do anywhere near the amount of work. But what I love about the team is kind of the pathways, because like you've got project leads, so they will have like our aero manufacture lead, and then like chassis manufacture lead, and then you've got aerodynamics lead designer, you've got mechanical lead designer, and then you got all the big boys, so the CTO, the COO, CEO. So the like pathways you can take on the team are massive. And people go on to work for like Williams, Red Bull, Rocket Lab, Southern Spars. Like quite a lot of us go on to work for big sponsors just because they want people with experience, which especially in composites is so beneficial, because you can't get experience in composites without being on a team like this, because it's just so niche.
How are you spending? Because to me, it's like more than just like, you know, you do your internship for the summer or something. Like you're so in it, which is, like you said, wicked, because that work experience, not even just with comp, but like within the team, and when you have to have deadlines, or, you know, you might have a sponsor coming through and you need to talk to them and lay people's, like all of that experience is so valuable. But this uni that you mentioned on the side, like how is your week looking time-wise? If you were to say, I spend, you know, like 80-20 on each, what's that looking like?
When I say uni is to the side, I mean, I still do a lot for uni. It's usually 50 to 60 hours on uni and then 20 to 30 on FS.
Wow.
Like, it seems like a lot, but for me, that was like normal for me. I was always that busy. That's how much I probably put into school versus hobbies as well, in terms of like hobbies being including leadership and all that. But I know definitely in like year 13, that's probably what the split was. So for, like, that sounds like real crazy and intense, but for me, that was kind of normal, and I enjoy that. Like, the sense of being busy is quite nice to me. But
So is this
you know,
for how many years is this, Rachel, that you'll be making stuff and studying every year?
yeah, theoretically, you can stay on the team for as many years as you're in uni, and then I think it's plus 7 months after you graduate. So it really depends if you go part-time or if you're full-time. Like I intend to drop a paper next sem and do summer. So I won't, which was like came on the back of a bit of a spiral last week because like it's so great having FS, but like your grades take a dip. And like, but you know, you'll talk to every member of the team and they'll be like, it's worth it. Like it is so 100% worth it because you don't get hired on your grades, you get hired on who you are. And working as part of like an 80-person team to build a car in like 6 months, you just don't get that anywhere else. So for me, like it was quite strange switch to have such academic pressure and then come here and go, they're not the most important thing. So to go from like what would be probably an A+A student to more like a B, like B- student, that was like a hard thing for me to take mentally. And like, but like kind of getting over it, I've realized that I'm actually better off. Like I'm way more well-rounded and way more holistic. Like the ability to work in a team of that size, and applying to work after uni, that's what makes a difference. And that's like my piece of advice is don't think that your grades are the most important thing for being employable. They're really not. Like anyone can, well, not anyone, but anyone can tell you the forces on a bridge. Not everyone can work with that many people and communicate and get things done on time.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah. I'm not sure how many people on their CV have all their grades listed from first, second, third, and fourth year, eh? I got an engineering degree.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I worked on the FS team will be far more significant than the degree piece of paper, won't it?
Yeah. 100%.
Can I go back a little bit? You said you moved in. Are you in a hall?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm in a
Can you
first year.
explain to people where that is and how and how that's going for you, going from home to Auckland first? Yeah.
I think for me, it was always going to be a hall, especially if I'd stayed at home, I would have stayed at home. Sorry, if I'd gone to Waikato, I would have stayed at home. So I ended up in Grafton, which is quite strange because it's more like the medkit hall because we're right by the hospital. And it was quite interesting because I actually got waitlisted for halls at Auckland, and it kind of left a bit of taste in my mouth because I got a scholarship from them, and then they put me on the waitlist for halls. It was like, well, I'm not going to you. Like everyone else is giving me money in halls. Like what's up with your ass? You know, like it was quite funny at the moment because I was really bitter. And eventually I just found out it's because I swapped my preference. So I was just being annoying for nothing. And it, you know my mum, she sent some emails. I sent some emails. we got on the hall eventually. For me, I think the hall is definitely worth it. I don't probably make the most of it due to the fact I'm never here. I tend to eat late dinners a lot, but the one thing I will recommend is the stability. Like in first year, if I didn't have a hall, like I could not be doing as much as I do. Like the ability to come home every day and just have a clean room with a door that locks and a meal that's been cooked for you. Like it's so beneficial. And to have like an RA who like will always like get you help and stuff, that was quite nice. And it was quite interesting because my friend group from high school, like 6 or 7 of us are in this hall, which was crazy. Like it just doesn't happen. Like getting someone else from your school in your hall is enough. But like we were all the same friend group from the same school and we all went into the same hall.
Yeah.
And it's quite a small hall as well. I think we're only 300, which is quite big, but you see each other all the time. And it's quite interesting to see that it's already kind of separated as people go their different ways.
Yeah. So how are you paying for this experience? You've got a scholarship, but how are you looking? So kids sitting there, yeah, what's the payment plan? Did you work prior or are you what?
Yeah. I'm quite lucky to also have support from my parents. So my parents do pay for my rent. But on terms of actually paying for it, it is a lot. It's 520 a week but you also do live on campus, which is, I think I'm a 15-minute walk from uni, but as you get closer to the kids in Waipururu and Towers, they walk 5 minutes. You're literally like on central, which I think for the first year, people don't realize how beneficial, like people call it lazy and with ease, but the benefit, like you've moved away from home and you've got no easy layer of support from your parents. Living on campus it's so beneficial. Like the ability to just get to uni quickly, and like if you wake up late you can get to your classes, like learning the sense of responsibility with safety and like with comfort, like having the independence start to grow that way, I think that was super beneficial. But in terms of paying for it, to be fair, I do work a lot in summer. So I work 60 hours a week through summer for 12 weeks, I think. So I have quite a lot of savings, which is quite lucky, and that'll go towards everything next year. I do intend to get a loan, even if, I will say this, even if your parents are paying or you can afford to put yourself through without a loan, get a loan. It's interest free. You can put it in investment. You can save it. Like people are making money off their loans already as we speak who aren't using a shred of it. So like,
It's not a
get
criminal
an
offence.
interest-free loan. Yeah, use it.
Yeah, yeah. If you trust yourself, yeah.
Yeah. Just put it in a separate account.
Yeah, yeah. Can I just touch on, because initially you went stuff Auckland, don't want to go to Auckland, hate Auckland. Now what's your reflection on Auckland Uni as a recommendation or as a where you're sitting now that you've actually given it a shot? What are your feelings?
I think I was just very, very lucky that I went to a uni and it worked. I do not recommend what I did and just throwing your dollies out the pram and going, fine, I'll just go to Auckland. The first few weeks I was just like, right, you're just here to study. Like, you don't need to do anything else. Just study, go back to your hall. Like, doesn't matter where you live. That was my mindset. And I think honestly, it was just like, you just start walking around campus and you're like, oh, it's actually not that bad. And that was how it changed. And I love being on campus now. I hated the idea of a city campus, but I'd also had my head wrapped up in being at like an old Australian university. So for me to admit that I wanted something else was difficult, I think, for me, because I'd wanted that goal for so long. And I think it also comes back to knowing what you want and what you want out of uni. Like
Yep.
there's such an external pressure, especially when I got ducks, it felt like I had to do something more. And I had to prove that it was worth me getting ducks, if that makes sense. Because obviously there were quite a few people going for it. It felt like I had to prove that I deserved to have it by making the most of it. And so for me, like going to Auckland was almost like giving up on the big, big dream rather than seeing the actual benefits of going to Auckland, which was way more practical in the end. And it was like, I don't know how I got that lucky, but it was the right decision overall. And perhaps I didn't do enough research into uni in New Zealand. And so when I was doing my research for uni, a lot of it was Australia, so there wasn't much support at school. I will say Karina Judson wrote heaps of my stuff for me. And it was only in that last like 2 months of high school that I was like, hey, let's actually go talk to the careers advisor. Because, everyone kind of slags them off and like, oh, they're just going to give you pamphlets. But I didn't realize that support was there and that it was actually good. Because everyone has different experiences, I guess, with it. But for me to have like no external support from Australia, like with Australia stuff, she was the first person to be like, nah, I'll help you. Like, she's like, I'll learn the system for you. And to see people go out of their way for you like that is just more of like a thing that you can do it and like you can go overseas. And even though I didn't, it was still the like confidence it gave me. And I think kids not seeing that is like part of the reason they might not believe they can go tertiary.
Yeah, cool. I've just got one more random thing. Grace will start soon, but I just, a weird one probably is a young woman in Auckland safety wise. There'll be a lot of parents thinking sending their kids anywhere, in fact, Victoria or any tertiary or travel overseas. How are you keeping yourself safe and do you feel safe? Yeah.
I'm probably not the best example. I tend to walk home in the dark quite a lot, but and honestly in Auckland, like, I'm not going to lie, you have mugging. Like, I know people who've been mugged, but it's also about the right places at the right times. Like, you get accustomed to where you should be walking at night and where you shouldn't be. Like, I walk home from the workshop every night and it's a 10-minute walk through, like, on a main motorway and then down, like, Grafton residential streets. It's safe because obviously you've got doctors and nurses living in those houses. Rather than, like, I would not be walking down our main Grafton street at night because you get the weird people hanging outside of the hospital. But so, like, it comes with anywhere though. So yes, you should be worried, but like, as long as you're aware and knowing where the right places are, like, that was my one thing. I didn't yes, I'm not a good example and you shouldn't walk home in the dark, but I'm very safe. I have someone who knows where I am. And also being on a uni campus that late, you also have security who walk you to a bus, walk you to your car as if you call. And I think that's pretty standard. I know for us, they will literally they'll walk me from main campus to my hall for like 20 minutes. Because
Okay.
I think they're there till 12 or something. So
Yeah.
That's consistent across, I think, at least in my uni experiences too. And it is like you said, having that RA. Even you can ask RA, like, yeah, I'm thinking to walk back at night, and they'll give you the same way you're giving the listeners that real advice of what's practical.
Yeah.
You can go to your RA and they can, like you said, it's this independence with a safety net of you can figure stuff out, but then you have that support there and you have the RA, you have whoever just to confirm or redirect you a little bit if you're going off course. So I think you've done such a really brilliant job, honestly, of outlining to someone listening. I'm sure you're thinking at Ludlam, incredible, because you're so in it right now, and it's nice and wonderful that we have the people who are, me, I'm basically 10 years out of where you are. How you even said last week I had a little spiral and now I'm changing. I look back and I just go, oh, there was highs and lows, and I wouldn't remember what the causation to the result. So just thank you, because it's so valuable having you in it right now. And I'm sure next year we'll be like, what was your decision? Did you stay on campus? Did you go off? Like, have you given that thought about, obviously you're only in kind of beginning, but next year you've loved being on campus. What are your thoughts for housing?
I think it's difficult. Living in Auckland is expensive. The closer you get to uni, the money just racks up and up and up. I know my mum would prefer me to stay on campus and do somewhere like Carlo, which is second year and up. You're paying, I think, nearly $360 a week just for accommodation. But $360, you're living on campus with security, with an RA. It all starts evening out. And I mean, but there was also the sense that you start getting a little bit isolated. And that's what I felt myself doing. Like, you live in a small little box and you only see people at uni, and for me, FS. So I don't have many new hall friendships, which I was just very lucky that I had people from high school. So I have someone to fall on if, everything goes sour. So I think for me, I'm not sure yet. I have a couple people who are talking about flatting, but it gets difficult busing back at night and stuff. Because that's the other thing around safety is I feel more comfortable walking than on a bus at night in Auckland sometimes, depending on the distance, obviously. Yeah. But buses are actually probably more unsafe in Auckland than walking, I will say.
Interesting.
It's so busy most of the time that you will be safe.
Yeah, I remember my sister did the whole, she was an RA, but then she did those sorts of second, third, fourth year on campus. And like you said, all those benefits of coming back from FS at night. I'm curious because you talked about in year 13, you went back to drama, you were playing your sports. If you're doing a 60-hour study week and then 20 to 30 at FS, has there been thought of having some outlet creatively as well?
Yeah. And I think for me, that was at the start of the year, I was like, yeah, I'm going to join the drama. But it was also you can't do both. You can't do multiple things with FS. Some people can, but I think first year when you're also trying to get your spec you want, because that's the difference with Auckland as well, is we're just part ones. We don't have our mechanical, civil, mechatronics, whereas if you go Waikato or even UC, I think, but we're the only one who's purely GPA based. So for this year, it is quite important to keep your grades high, because you can end up in, I obviously want to go down mechanical, but you could end up in structural and you can't change your degree. Very, very rarely you can change your degree, and you just have to stick with it, and you can't defer either.
So, and just to go on that a bit, because I feel like that's actually quite important. So is the way it works, if you get the top GPA, you get to pick or is it a rank?
Yeah.
How did that go?
So we have 10 specs and we individually rank our 10 specs, how we'd like them. And then they go down and there's a cutoff. So I think there's usually it's tronics at the top, mechatronics, which is the robotics one, which I think is usually a GPA of 7. So they take the top 100 people, I think 100 people with the highest GPAs who gone for mechatronics first option. They go like this. So if I was mechatronics first and I didn't get it, then I'd be ranked against everyone in my second option. So even if your first option is someone else's second option, they might still get your first option if their GPA is higher. There's no so like medical, you've got like there's some gender stuff, there's some disability, there's some rural, that's not engineering. They don't care who you are, it's all done by number, not name.
Right, and then the GPA, so I went states where the max GPA was 4, and you just mentioned 7. If you got A+++ in everything, what's the max GPA you could get?
For Auckland, it's a 9.
It's a 9, right.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's really interesting too, so thank you. Also, I'm wondering, Ludlam, you, but also Rachel, is there anything we haven't asked you? Because as mentioned, we're a little bit out of these uni days, just slightly. Something we haven't asked that you think is really important, or maybe you found interesting during the process?
I would say like uni is different from high school in the fact that you build it around you. And I think some people struggled with high school because it can feel very, especially until like year 13, you can feel very like pigeonholed into subjects and stuff. But when you go to uni, you can make it niche. Like you can make it so niche. Maybe not engineering is not a good example, or med or law, but any other degree. And you can make it work for you. Like I personally am going to go 3 papers next sem and a paper in summer. But I know some people who do weird mixtures, like they'll do 5 one sem, 2 another, and then a paper in summer. So I think for some people, the feeling of going out of high school and being like, I'm going to be forced to take these things, is you can drop papers in that first 2 weeks and do something you want to do. You can go niche. And I think people forget that with uni, is that you don't have to do the things you don't want to do. Like you are paying to be there. They don't have to make you do anything, except if you're engineering medicine. But in general, you choose it for you, not for them.
Well, what you said too about dropping the paper next sem, I remember doing something similar because I was rowing, and when we were in season, we'd be traveling a lot, we were there, so most of us would front load. If we had to take 8 papers, we would do the 5 in the quote unquote off season, and then in racing 3. Are you doing that with FS because that's when the car's gonna be ready? Like, what's the thoughts there?
Yeah, so actually the big push months for FS is kind of like now. The car is generally built by start of August, which is really early, you might think, but then we have 2 months to actually get it to drive, which can sometimes be when you're working with electric cars as well. So I know we are, in terms of timeline, the chassis is going to be finished within the next month, 2 months. So it actually is very, very quick. In terms of going third paper is just, I am very aware of the toll that FS takes on the grades and on your, not health, but just your ability to go out and relax and do other things. Yeah. And we take WTR, which is the new course Auckland does, which has been a bit of a mess this year because I don't feel as if they've properly trialed it. So it's the first year, it's called Waipapa Taumataro, and the whole idea is it's learning how to be your career in New Zealand. There's just been some issues with it, and there's been a lot of petitions online, and even David Seymour's spoken up against it. But so that was almost like an off paper because we didn't count towards our specialization. We just had to pass it. So it's quite easy to just push it aside, which is a bit cheeky, but so the idea was that if I'm quite struggling with workload now, that I can make it work next sem and still get my goals. You just have to give something to get something.
Great foresight to be thinking ahead, so kudos to you. Also, I saw Ludlam and I's eyebrows raised because that paper sounds interesting and it kind of fuels the fire, right, of why we're doing this. Because, like, if you're in that first year of uni, you're either you and, building a Formula 1 car, or maybe you're going to the toga party, whatever it is, you're sort of maybe not fully in that brain of career. So that's just interesting, Ludlam, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so I get it right, Rach, FS stands for what?
Formula student.
Formula student. Cool.
Yeah.
And what Grace just mentioned, what most important thing, parties, toga, all you can drink. Like, what's it been like socially, or have you ignored it?
I'm probably a certified town hater. I have not actually properly gone out since I've been here. I think I've been out once, and that was to Toga, and I didn't actually go out clubbing. I just went to that is the nice one, I will say, is going to Toga. Like, if you're going to do anything in a week, go to Toga. It's a nice little thing. It's usually on the Friday, so you can finish off your week. And for us, it was free, and we got to go see the town hall. Like, I really enjoyed it. It was fun, but I'm probably not a good example. I literally put on the alcohol-free ban, so I didn't have to wait in line. I'm not a very good example of a rebellious teenager. I mean, some people do go hard. Like, we have student nights Wednesday to Saturday. Some people, like, I'll come home at like 9 p.m. on a Wednesday night.
Half the week.
That's a work week.
I think you were going to say a night.
Some people will, like, I'll come back at 9:30 on a Wednesday night, like, covered in dust, like, real, just like, what's going on? And I just see 5 people walk out past me and, like, town outfits. I'm like, what are you doing? It's Wednesday. I'm like, I have an 8 a.m. tomorrow. Like, get back in your rooms. What are you doing? And they'll come back at like 3 a.m. and you can hear them because they wake you up.
That is, I mean, the waking up's not cool, but what is cool about being in that halls too, which I had found, was you listen to other people or the lifestyle choices they're making. And the same way you pick your niche in your study, people pick their niche of how they want to approach life. And I remember hearing people talk about their papers and they were so passionate. And I was doing law at the time, and I was like, I am not feeling the same. So that's another benefit I'm sure you might see with your friends, where they go, I thought I wanted to study business or something, but I'm hearing these people talk about comm, and that appeals to me. So it's just another benefit I had found when I was in the halls too.
Yeah. No, I definitely like that. It's also, living with this many people is, you meet so many new people who are so good at the random niche things that if you need help with something, someone's there. Like, for engineering, we have quite a lot of tests. So we have like a group chat for engineers in this hall because there's only like 12 of us, which makes it very easy to have a study group. It's also quite funny because the med students, I had one ask, well, not med, but first year health sci. They came up and asked me, they're like, oh, what degree do you do? I was like, engineering. They're like, no, engineers don't live in this hall. I was like, sweet, cool. Because they're convinced it's just a med hall. So that's quite funny. So we're like a rarity here. Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm pretty sure I live here, actually.
I was like, oh, okay, sweet, cool, I'll just move out.
Just quietly.
Yeah.
Ludlam, is there anything more question-wise from you?
Probably just a statement, Rachel. Like, yeah, so no, I think you've definitely answered my question, that whole weirdness about where did this come from? And I think it's a bold thing. I think, and I love that niche thing, that separate yourself from others. And we've had a few interviews already, and we've had some real trailblazing females going into industries like tattooing, and then what you're doing. And I think it's really cool. And so I'm hoping we can stay in touch with you, because obviously we want everyone to hear about FS, but we also particularly want, maybe someone, either, it wouldn't matter male or female, who might not necessarily think they're suited, but to give it a really good crack. So well done on that, and just really cool to, just hear the way you're speaking and your maturity, and, how you've acknowledged fault, or not fault, but decisions you've made. I think it's really cool. So, and thank you so much for being a part of this, because there'd be a lot of people interested in hearing what you've got to say. So thank you very much, and we'd love to get back to you. And if we get questions later, if we can ask you and see what you think, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will make a video. I just don't want to get kicked off the team, because wouldn't that be funny?
No, it wouldn't actually be funny. I would be sad.
Worth the sacrifice, Rachel.
No, that won't be happening. The last question I have, and you're already quite a reflective person, it feels like, so you've touched upon this, but if you were to go back to year 12, 13, not just a generic person, but yourself, what advice would you give?
Probably know what you want. I think I got too wrapped up in what others expected, and so that became what I wanted. And like on that, I'd say you can choose a uni for a club. You can choose a uni for a team. Like uni doesn't have to be academic. For me, uni has become more about networking. And I think that's also what I would have told year 12 me is it is more important that you go and meet people and learn the soft skills than getting an excellence in calculus. That shows you sometimes don't have social skills. I'm not gonna lie. You walk into some of those engineering classes, you're like, whoa. Can't lie. It's quite funny. It's quite funny, but you like, and it's important. Like I sit in a group project and you'll be with 4 guys because you've got no girls in your class and they won't even look at you in the eye because they just haven't learned the social skills because we've become so wrapped up in academics. And I think if I'd left in year 12, I'd be a very different person because I wouldn't have had that chance in year 13 to actually see that holistic is more important. And I think that's what year 12 me needed to hear was that me being a prefect and getting excellences in calc was all well and good, but it wasn't actually who I was as a person. That people don't care. Like to some degree, anyone can be a prefect, but not everyone can work with people. Not everyone can communicate. That's more important. And I think that's what people need to hear is like, you can be more successful than someone with excellences. And if you're failing, if you measure success differently. And I think that's what I needed to hear is success isn't this this boundary that you either achieve or you don't. Success is how you communicate. Success is what goals you have. Success is the ability to go out and chase your goals. And for me, that was what it was in the end was I need to realize that success for me is the fact that I even took that step and was like, I want to do motorsport and I'm going to do it. That's success. It wasn't getting a merit in a calc exam. You know, that's what I think people need to hear.
That's the way to finish it.